Okay, can I please tell you about the Odin 2?
Yes, please.
Dying to
Finally.
Because we recorded before Thanksgiving, and so it's been like 2.5 weeks. Okay, so there I was trying to play Mario 64 hacks. That's where it all starts. For those at home keeping score of like which premium emulator handhelds does the Red Cow crew have? EJ's got the ROG Ally. John has a Steam Deck. I don't think it's the OLED version though, right? Do you know?
I think it's the original, I believe.
Yeah, I think he kind of went for it in the early days. And I now have an Odin 2. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're like, doesn't he have those like 3 or 4 Ambernick devices at this point? And I did a video a few months ago where I had bought the RG35XX SP because that was really making the rounds on YouTube. It was the clamshell form factor that looks just like the Game Boy SP. I did the mod and I made it so the buttons aren't as clicky, and I have been playing that quite a bit, and I will continue to play that particular device, especially now that I've modded it. If what you wanted was the analog pocket or something, then like for me, this $65 SP device is really great. And I just saw the Ambernick who can't stop coming out with devices.
Oh geez, it's yeah, they have like a Game Boy one coming out, or Game Boy
Game Boy Advance. Yeah, I had no intention of buying another handheld. For the love of God, I had no intention of it. But when I got into Mario 64 ROM hacks, in particular, I wanted to play this one, Super Mario Land 64, and it's designed to look and feel a lot like Mario Land or 3D World, but it's Mario 64. It's linear, like you go to each level and you collect like 1 or 2 stars and you move on, kind of more similar to like Mario Galaxy 2 or something.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, that looks really fun. And I thought naively that I could throw it onto an EverDrive. And I think I mentioned on a clip, I was like, I can't seem to get these on my EverDrive. Well, I found out they only play on emulators. So it's it's people who developed M64 ROM hacks who went beyond the capabilities of the hardware. That's when I was joking about, you think I don't have an expansion pack? So you need a lot more than an expansion pack. So so what do I have for like TV emulation? Well, I had this Super Console X, and so I was like, maybe that'll work. And that thing was like $100 3 years ago or something. And I use that fairly often for emulation. I throw it on and it plays. It doesn't play nicely. I spent a bunch of time with ChatGPT trying to optimize exactly the settings needed for this to play. It plays, but there's no way I'm going to play this out here on the TV. I want to emulate this. And gosh darn it, like I want to emulate GameCube too. Like I keep hearing about Dolphin and how it can up-res all your old Nintendo shit. Why can't I? So I start looking into, I was like, but if I shall buy one of these premium devices, if I'm going to sink some money into a handheld, which one should it be? And I had just seen the ROG Ally, which I have to say the thing that struck me the most about the ROG Ally was it's both analog stick and D-pad dominant.
Yeah, you don't feel a cramp if you're shifting.
Yeah, it felt totally comfortable to go between the two. It didn't feel like, oh, this is really deprioritizes 2D gaming, or this really deprioritizes analog gaming. So then the one I was kind of floating more towards was the Retroid Pocket 5. It's like similar specs. It runs Android as well, and I think it can dual boot into Linux as well. So like if you're into the Linux firmware. And I've always really strongly preferred the Linux firmware.
Yes.
Android is much more powerful and flexible, but a lot more configuration.
Yeah, when it boots right into that like emulation station, RetroArch, whatever that is, if that's streamlined, it's beautiful.
And I started to learn that like if you want a powerful system, a powerful emulation system, you're running Windows or you're running Android. You're not running Linux. So then I started to gravitate towards, I had seen a recent review of the Odin 2 Mini, and I was like, that looks pretty cool. Russ starts saying, he's like, yeah, there's just one problem is it heats up really bad. Like, so if you're like playing a high performance game, it'll like get hot in your hand and the fans will turn on and all the rest of it. And I was like, I don't want to feel like what I'm holding is like a hacked device. Yeah, it can't quite do this, but we try to make it do it. No, I'm spending money. You can stay in the budget range and keep buying half measure devices. It's much like buying ellipticals. Like, you have to buy something that's going to work.
You have to buy the pro version.
I start talking about it on Discord, and our friend Monkaker starts being like, I have an Odin 2, and it's like all I play. It's my favorite thing in the world. The natural question is, why not a Steam Deck? Which is a great question. This is very minor, but that kind of square form factor is a little bit like, I'm not super into that. And the much more important reason, it's D-pad dominant. This is probably going to be first and foremost like a GameCube, PS2, N64, PSP, 3DS kind of system. So like I want analog first. So the Odin line started to become obvious. And then he was like, I think you should just get the Odin 2, just the normal ass. I was like, it came out a year ago though. And he's like, it's still king. I'm told that there's a base model that's like $299. And then I think the Pro is like $350 or something. And then the Max is like $415, something like that. And the Max like gets you specs that everybody says is not necessary. So it's 16 gigs of memory, same processor, same GPU, but 16 gigs of memory and 512 gig of internal storage. I did go for that because I'm like, I'm not buying 2 Odin 2s. Okay. So like, I'm a big fan of, like when I watch John Bargain Hunt or whatever, I'm always like, look, when it comes to niche items, when I want one, I want one. Yeah. And when I don't want one, I won't buy one. And so like when I'm shopping, I'm shopping.
I was just here last night. I got really good deals and the good deals dried up. What's with that?
So I watched a lot of videos. And I did it. It seems like everybody prefers the non-black models. I really like the black, frankly.
It's an adult handheld for an adult. God damn it.
So as you can see, it's about it's a little smaller than the normal Switch. And it feels much better than, in my opinion, than the normal Switch. Not much better, but like 20% better, probably. Something like
Mario
that.
Galaxy 2 on that baby.
I got Mario Galaxy 2. Boom, boom. We're doing Switch. We even got the look. We'll use this to center the pointer, and look, when we move it around, we got ourselves
it's got the gyro.
It's got the gyro. When I was checking out, it was like, would you like to buy a million other things? And I said yes. It said, do you want to buy a dock for $25? Yeah, sure. I'll take a dock. So it's got USB-C for power. It's got HDMI, normal HDMI, so none of this mini HDMI shit. And it's got an Ethernet for some reason. I have no idea why. I mean, maybe
for the internet.
I like that you don't actually, I suppose the Switch is similar, but if you have battery power, you don't need to be plugging this into anything other than HDMI. So it's nice and portable. So you just like walk up to HDMI with TV, boom. You've got, if you have a controller, you've got, television console. So the battery life on this thing's crazy. So if you're doing like high performance emulation, GameCube or whatever, I think you still see like 8 hours. Wow, and if you're doing less, you get much more. That's like one of its best things is the battery. That's what people love. I have a new elliptical, right? I alluded to that earlier. This thing was like a lot of money. And it's called like the True Gravity or something. You don't go up and down quite as much. Your legs do all the work, and you don't go. So that means that like my upper half is stable, and I can pretty much play a video game.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So when I'm on there for a while, I can Sonic. So I bought that. But because it takes so if you try to do this like with like USB power, like if you don't have like a higher voltage adapter or something, it's going to take forever to charge this thing, like all night. So you can buy a 100 watt from them for a couple bucks. And so I did that. They have a little carrying case. I grabbed it because I probably will actually travel with this and I don't want to damage it. And then, I wanted, and I'll talk about this more, but I wanted to be able to play like with a Pro controller. So I had the SF30 8-bit for 2D stuff, and that was fun, but nothing new. And I was like, I want a Pro controller that's going to work well. And it seemed like everybody was getting the ultimate Bluetooth. So I grabbed it. There's a little switch on the back, Bluetooth or 2.4. And it's got the little paddles too. The Odin 2 has the paddles, and I've used it for some stuff like going home or whatever. So there's a tremendous amount of setup with this thing, like days of setup, and it came at a terrible time because I am supposed to be editing a holiday special right now, and I have a lot of editing to do, and so I should not be up late at night chat GPTing the smallest of config. Trying to Google around Reddit for this shit is, can be a chore. And everything's configurable. Every little teeny tiny thing is configurable. It's just you don't know where and you don't know what and you don't, and Rust gets you pretty far. So Rust, there were two basically, there's a half-hour long video on how to set up Emulation Station on Android, which is a fairly new thing, like last 6 months or something.
Yeah, it was like you could download it from some website, basically, right?
Which is pretty important if you want to consoleize this thing. And then there's the setup of all the standalone emulators. So for those who are unaware, RetroArch?
I don't know.
RetroArch.
Just go with it. Whatever
is kind of is your main emulator, in as much as it manages lots of sub emulators, like cores they call them. So that's your NES, your SNES, your GBA. You don't need to be downloading an individual emulator for each and every one of those, but for some you do. So for like we and for GameCube you want Dolphin. For PSP you want PPSSPP.
Right.
For 3DS you want Citra, et cetera, et cetera. For PS2 you want this Aether one. Now, that's part of the confusion is that he did his big here's how to set up the Odin 2 video before Emulation Station came out. There was a lot of so now that we've set up our, from several months ago, our game folder, we're going to have to move all those files into a new folder and remap everything. And I kind of, just in the interest of not falling behind or getting confused, I kind of just followed each video chronologically, even if it meant double work. I bought a 1.5 terabyte SD card for Black Friday on SanDisk's site. So you got to get a SanDisk. You can't fuck around with anything else.
Yeah.
You can get 2 for each $88 on Black Friday. There's Emulation Station, by the way. It's ready to rock. And for the most part, the setup when you're going through all the standalone emulators is here are my games. Here's the button mapping for this particular system. Russ is very good. He has diagrams for okay, this is what I think GameCube should look like. So, A on GameCube is B and B on GameCube is Y. And we're not going to do, these are X and whatever. And this is the C stick. But this, I think both should be Z, whatever. So you follow along. Almost all of his advice is pretty sound. Things were pretty easy for the most part, but some of these emulators are kind of experimental. There's a Vita one that it's not ready for prime time. This thing. Russ suggested, and I agreed with him, that the controller, when you're setting everything up, it should be Xbox style or to the initiated X input. So that's to say the south face button is A.
Yeah. It's very confusing. It's very confusing. Yeah, because my 8BitDo Ultimate controller has the B in the south position. Yeah, everything is Xbox land. So when I'm playing Elden Ring, it's saying press A. Press A. And it's not the same.
Yeah. I don't know why, but for some reason, by default, RetroArch on Android will make, for NES games, I think B is B and A is A.
Yeah,
whereas, obviously it should be, if it was an NES layout, Y over the left.
Y is usually B.
Would be B, and the B would be A.
Yeah.
So I've got to make sure I got to set that straight.
No, yeah, I'm trying to think of the default positions for what I'm fingers. Usually. Y is usually B.
My point is this. You spend a tremendous amount of time going how do I play video games? And why the defaults are not way better when every single video out there is change it to this, change it to this. Mm-hmm. This will be better. I don't know why the defaults blow, but if they could get their defaults in order, this whole thing would have been way, way simpler. Now, if you plug in this, which essentially has the same button configuration as the gamepad, because you've already mapped all your buttons just so with the gamepad, this should, when it becomes port 1, do all the same shit. There's a problem.
It doesn't.
You cannot sync this to Android, this controller right here, the 8BitDo Ultimate Bluetooth. You cannot sync it to Android in X input mode. You can only do Nintendo Switch mode. But if you do 2.4 gigahertz and put in the dongle, you can do X input, my friend.
Okay.
But they don't let you in Bluetooth mode. So I'm like, fuck that. This is almost a waste of.
The dock doesn't have USBs on it, no.
Well, it's got the power. Yeah, it's got USB-C for power.
Well, that's it.
That's a good point. You could plug in a multi-port thing.
You would dock your dock.
No, you know what you can do. So I did find a way around it. You can install the 8BitDo Ultimate software, and it will let you sync new button configs, anything you'd like. But figuring that out and making it work reliably was a challenge. Oh, this is kind of minor. This is just a taste thing. People like these fucking lights on their control stick, right? I don't like this. I think this is dumb. Oh,
yeah. I have those on. I can turn them off on the ROG Ally, but I just haven't. But yeah, it's a fad right now. Every Chinese handheld is putting those on them.
I think that's too much.
That's too much.
You can. One thing I really liked was that you can put this thing into high performance mode, so it's just always on high performance, which will suck the battery, but not really because the battery is awesome.
Yeah.
And then you can put the fan to automatic, so you can just say just kick on if you, So far I haven't taxed the thing at all.
Is it a loud fan? It doesn't even matter when it's
I haven't really experienced it. I think one time I turned it on and it was loud, but it never turns on. D-pad feels good. Some people don't like. They think that the analog sticks are a little bit nubby, and you can swap these with the more kind of Switch style. I guess so. But so far, it's really no complaints at all. I find that the volume, there's not a good in-betweeny volume. There's like almost silent, and then there's too fucking loud.
Yeah.
Towards the bottom range of the volume, but it gets very loud, and it's pretty good sound. But here's the good news. GameCube's a dream.
Yeah, Dolphin's like the best emulator on the planet.
Yeah, like booting up Mario Kart Double Dash, and it's 16:9, like 1080p, and it looks like they just released it, or like Nintendo just had like a formal re-release of that game. Fucking amazing. Same with like Xbox put out Sonic 2 Adventure, or Sonic Adventure 2 rather, in 16:9 in HD some time ago on like Xbox Live. They put out an HD version of Sonic Adventure 1 as well, but it was not widescreen. Now you got widescreen.
Yeah.
And because they call it like widescreen hacks. I don't know exactly what it's doing. I think it's just kind of like rendering what data it has, because it knows the 3D environment probably, and it can just do it. Mm-hmm. But what that means is that cutscenes, menus, that sort of thing often is either stretched low res or the wrong aspect ratio, but it's okay. So, but it means like as you're booting into a level, it'll be like, Sonic Adventure 2, it'll be like all 4:3, like city escape. And then it will turn into 16:9, which is really kind of fun. It also means like, the one I've spent the most time on, as you saw, it's Mario Galaxy 2, because that never, that didn't get the treatment that Mario Galaxy 1 got. And now it's kind of obvious what they did with Mario Galaxy 1. They just did this.
Yeah.
They threw it out there.
Which makes me like kind of baffled why they haven't released that. It seems like a no-brainer. Or even if it didn't come in the initial collection, just have it as like a DLC or whatever add-on later. Like,
yeah.
Just do it. What's your problem?
I gotta save something for the Switch 2, I guess. Because now, like, the longer they wait, the more people will be thrilled when it happens. They'll fucking flip their Arlo. It'll be a good day for Arlo and all the rest of it. Like, like
it was a good day.
It feels wondrous. It feels wonderful.
But the thing that really blew my socks off, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be exciting. I didn't really play a whole lot of 3DS in the past, 10, 20 years or whatever. Seeing upscaled Mario 3D Lands, seeing upscaled Star Fox 3D, that one especially, that one's fucking tits.
Oh,
Star Fox
I was playing the Ocarina of Time 3D remake with my boys, and they loved it. They thought it was like a new game. It looked so good.
Yeah, I was shocked by how awesome it looked. Or a big one with Mario Kart 7, which is you can tell like that's very much the prototype for Mario Kart 8. And in a way, I kind of prefer it. Like it feels a little bit better. It feels a little bit less like prefab to me. It felt a little bit more organic.
Yeah.
I like Mario Kart 8. It's just at this point, it's been around for like 10 years with just like, kind of like courses that get swapped in and out, and it just feels a little like a fake game or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I understand completely.
Yeah. And the thing is, the native resolution on the 3DS is like 800 by 240, so it's not a teeny resolution to start with, and then they blow it up and it looks really, really nice.
Yeah.
I'm interested in Vita. I want to learn more about what's on the Vita, but so far everything that looks like something you'd buy for the Vita is something that's available for something else. Yeah. It's kind of like the Wii U problem.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a failed console, so it's just like...
Yeah, everything got ported. Yeah. There was a couple of like platformers that looked kind of interesting. Mutant one or something. They look kind of interesting. I'll try those out. Those just look kind of cool. Like indie platformers. I was like, that actually could be fun. I think that's basically it. Oh, the Sega Saturn. You can emulate, that was a system that it was always trouble to emulate. So I never really did. Now I'm looking at Sega Lord X and trying to figure out what should I be playing for Saturn. And it's either PS1 games, or it's like there's like that Astra one that looks really cool, but like there doesn't look to be a lot of gameplay here.
Yeah. What's the Nights into Dreams or whatever?
I'm starting to think that Saturn sucks balls. I think the Saturn might suck.
Ass!
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.